Hi there. Welcome to Landlord Gurus podcast. We got Chris and Eli here. Today we are going to talk about how much does a property manager cost. So if you have been thinking about getting a property manager or are currently have hired a property manager, we're going to talk about what costs you should expect, what costs you would have to pay, things to think about, and things you may not have expected. So Eli, I know that you have hired a property manager at various times in the past for certain properties. What's been your experience with the costs?
Well, it'll vary a little bit. It could vary a lot market to market, but where I have dealt with property managers, the costs have been anywhere from 7% to 8% on the low side of gross rents per month that you pay out right off the top to 10% of gross rents. And then generally that's not the end of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I've heard even for like single family homes, if you're renting out a single family home, that you may be charged up to 12% of that monthly rent for property managers. So yeah, again, depends on how many units the building has.
Yeah, big complexes, it can be lower, but then you've got on-site property managers generally as well. So that's an additional cost. So I did decide to hire a property manager a couple of years ago for a property that I own in Portland, Oregon. So that's a 3-hour drive from here in Seattle. And I did that because it takes time to get down there and back to fill vacancies and manage the maintenance. I found people that could deal with issues pretty well, good vendors. But sometimes, especially when the market was a little tougher, it really was taxing. A lot of trips back and forth to fill the vacancies. So yeah, I hired a property manager and wanted to see how it went. And I think I got pretty favorable terms for a triplex. And that is 8% gross off of the gross rents is the fee every month that I pay. And then I pay 50% in a lease up fee. So every time there's a vacancy, I pay half of whatever the rent will be in a fee to find a new tenant.
So that's a common expense that a lot of property managers will charge, is that if they are finding a new tenant, that they will charge you, in your case, 50% of 1 month's rent to find that new tenant, sometimes even up to a full month for a new tenant. And sometimes, on lease expiration, even just for renewal, they may take another 25% or 50% just to renew with the same tenant, not finding a new tenant, but just renewing with the same tenant.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That's something that I do pay, actually. I think it's a flat fee. I think it might be $200. So it doesn't feel like a huge percentage, but it's a fee and they add up.
Yeah.
There are others.
Yeah. So talk about some of the other fees there. I think you had mentioned before that there might be a transportation fee that they charge or a fuel surcharge or things like that.
Yep, that is becoming more typical as the fuel rates are skyrocketing right now, but it's been there for a while now. And in the big cities, commute times are long. So it makes some sense, but it's also an expense.
So if it takes them an hour to get there and back, you will get charged either an hourly fee or the flat rate.
I think I'm paying about $50 per maintenance trip. And that's actually more often on the property management staff going out. That usually the trip surcharges are kind of buried in the vendor costs, right. Although it could be a line item on the vendor invoice, but you can see it in both cases. Another one of the fees that I see are admin costs. It can be pretty low. It could be $5 for submitting a maintenance request to a vendor, for example. There can also be markup overhead on any expense that the property manager pays on my behalf.
Right. So if they have, say, a plumber come out to your apartment to do a repair, you might get charged not only what the plumber charges, but a surcharge or a markup by the property manager on top of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's usually 15%, but it could be 10 or 5, at least 5.
Right. So similar to how a general contractor might charge for their subcontractors.
Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Got it. Any other fees or expenses that we should think about if we're considering hiring a property manager?
That's what comes to mind. I think those are most of them. It's important to ask about all of the fees that are associated. And my property manager told me about all those up front, and that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So you want to be really clear, though. What actions do I pay on?
Right. And just know that it all adds up and affects your bottom line. We actually have a property management cost calculator on our website that you can check out and input those percentages and rates and those markups, and you can see for yourself how much of your gross profit is being eaten away by a property manager, and see if that makes sense for you. For some, it might. If you're too busy to do it yourself or don't want to handle that yourself, maybe it makes sense. For others, you might say that's too much and look for other options, which we talk about as well.
Right. We write about lots of property management software tools, lots of services, and ways to make managing yourself more palatable and easier and more profitable.
Check it out. Look for more videos on this topic, and we'll see y'all soon. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for watching.